What's good, Faith Walkers? Welcome back to the God's Vibes podcast. Welcome to September. Happy new month. Happy new month. We've got a great prophetic word upcoming, so make sure that you subscribe and you listen to that prophetic encouragement for the month of September. If you do want the full word of that too, you can become a God's Vibes insider, where you can actually receive the written form of that. So we send out prophetic encouragement every single month. We let you know what's going on inside Courage Co. and some exciting things that you can be a part of, and you get all of that in one place. And so it's not spam, it's full of goodness, whether it's book excerpts, a declaration of the month, a prophetic encouragement, it's full of goodness. So definitely worth becoming an insider for. And the link to become a God's Vibes insider is in the show notes. So go ahead and subscribe to God's Vibes. Go into the show notes and click on the links that are there. There's always so much good stuff after every single episode, so you can just explore. And when in doubt, you can go to www.courageco.org so that you can see where everything lives. We recently did a revamp, I guess, could be a good word, where everything is organized differently in your main dashboard with the intention of making that super simple for you to navigate. So if you ever had a question in your mind, where's this? Where does this live? We made that very straightforward. And when you join, the main place you want to hang out is in the Start Here section, and then also in the events. So we do different free events every month, and that'll be a great place to know what is happening. This week, for example, you're not going to want to miss it. We have a free masterclass on Wednesday, September 4th at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Yes, okay. Doing time zones in my brain. But this is going to be really powerful. There's a tendency, and I've lived this, so there's definitely no shame, no judgment, of just receiving information, almost just binging on information. And that actually can have a quality of deception potentially connected to it if we're not careful. So we can think just because we're receiving so much information that we know it. That is not the same, okay? It's applied wisdom. Applying what you know that actually proves what you know. An example of this, you don't really know what you know until you teach it. You don't really know what you know until you are tested to demonstrate it. You actually have to prove your faith. You have to prove what it is that you know, not to other people, but just even to yourself, that you know what you say you know. You might say all day that you're the most patient human you know until that is tested. Right? You might say that you know this scripture verse, like you just know it, but until that's actually tested, you don't know that you know that, right? So there's this tendency just to consume, and just gather information, which in and of itself does not have to be a problem. There is a time where God will say, go get this information, go learn this skill, go get coaching here, go be mentored here. He will tell us those things to do. However, if we make it a habit where all we're doing is consuming, this is where it becomes unhealthy. So this masterclass is going to be all about how you turn insights into action. What does that mean? What does that look like? How will that benefit your life? And what is the cost if you don't do that? Especially if you identify as a leader, if you are a parent, if you are a business owner, a CEO, if you are not turning insights into action, that can become quite costly. And it's definitely worth seeing that, playing that out, and looking at what that looks like. Okay? So if you're tired of being stuck and you're ready to change your life, make sure that you join this free masterclass. If you've not done this, we do these masterclasses and they are trainings and there's practical actions that you can take. It's also a great space to ask questions and get feedback. So it's very dynamic and it's very interactive. So do not let your valuable insights go to waste. Turn them into powerful actions that will propel you towards the good plans and purposes that God has for you. You can join us. There's a link in the show notes to RSVP so that we know that you're going to be there. When in doubt, just to keep it simple, you can go to www.courageco.org in a browser, Once you log in, go to the events tab. It's the very first tab in the left side menu, and RSVP. It's going to be one of the first events that's there. Okay? The other exciting thing to be aware of this week, Courage Co monthly coaching is officially going live. We've been working hard behind the scenes to get this ready for you and structured and all set up for you. And you can join on Wednesday. Okay, so what it is, if you're not familiar, it is faith-based growth and accountability 1 month at a time. I mean, yes, please. Right? So often, you're probably familiar, you've heard the quote, you become like the 5 people that you surround yourself with. Well, that could be great, right? Depending on who you surround yourself with. But if you're the smartest person in your circle, that's not a great thing. You need to surround yourself with some other people. Also, you can get comfortable with the same 5 people around you all the time. And we never know what our blind spots are. That's why they are blind spots. All people need coaches. Even coaches need coaches. And so when you have accountability, when you have support, when you are constantly being challenged in your perspectives every week, let alone in your walk and your maturity in the Lord, this changes your life, because those little actions, those little moments, right, where you decide to show up weekly for yourself and go to work on yourself with God at the center, that compounds over time. So just imagine what could happen if you gave 3 months, 6 months, a year to investing in yourself, because the growth never ends, right? The growth journey with God never ends, and we're not meant to do it alone. And so this level of support could radically change your outcomes and your experience. And so what this looks like, our certified spirit-driven success coaches will guide you on your journey of personal growth. So anything is fair game, whether you want support in your business, whether you want it personally, whether you're walking through a relationship challenge, whatever that happens to be for you, you're going to get professional, accessible, and effective coaching every single month. So what you get are 4 60-minute coaching sessions. Like, for real? What is that? I cannot tell you what I pay for that. 4 60-minute coaching sessions a month with certified spirit-driven success coaches. You also get a monthly training and workshop every single month, okay, hosted by these coaches. And you get community. So if you do want to be encouraged by other people that are investing in themselves, that's surrounding yourself with more than the people that you're used to, that are stretching, that are growing, that are leaping, and that are journeying forward on their faith walk. There's nothing like this. Get on the wait list for this. We officially launch it on Wednesday. Courage Co monthly coaching. There's a link to that in the show notes as well. All right. So today I thought I might encourage you with a word about risk. Okay. Sometimes people say that faith is spelled that way. Faith is spelled R-A-S-K. I think there's some truth to that. However, our faith does not operate when we're in unbelief. Our unbelief actually cancels our faith. So a great thing to pray is, Lord, help me with my unbelief, okay? So risk is really important. Without risk, growth is impossible. When we are not stepping out, when we are not stretching, we are actually not growing, okay? So I'm going to go through 4 principles to help you get more familiar with risk so that you actually recognize and can perceive and know what comes with risk. We talked a lot about self-awareness in a previous episode. I really encourage you to go back and listen to that. But when you have awareness of what different things cost, what comes with those things when you embrace them, that helps you prepare for it. Okay? It doesn't make it any easier per se, but when you know what something entails, when you know what comes with it, then you can be sober-minded and diligent about it. You can actually dig your feet in, right, and start doing the work that's required. So an example of this, I know for me personally, I didn't come from business owners. I didn't come from entrepreneurship. I came from, you go this path, right? Like you go to school, you get a degree, you get a job, you stay in the job, then you retire, then maybe you can start living your life, right? Like that was sort of the journey. So there was no venturing outside of that, right? Those other people that were entrepreneurs were like hobbyists, you know, they just had hobbies that they were never successful at. So entrepreneurship was not something that was an option. It definitely, there was not a invitation for it, okay, that was enticing. So I know for me personally, when I was trying to pioneer in the very beginning and just start believing things that were sort of rebellious to what I was groomed in, I didn't know what came with entrepreneurship, okay? I was really starting to recognize who I was form shaped and anointed to be. I was starting to figure that out, at least in just the very beginning levels of that. But then I didn't know what came with putting yourself out into the world, right? The imposter syndrome that comes with that, the belief that you have to have about yourself and what you're offering to the world and how you can serve other people. The belief that you have to have about charging for services rather than just, doing an exchange with other people, right? I'll do this for free if you give me this for free. Instead of doing that or just offering things for free, like everything is ministry, right? At some point you have to believe that your services are of high service to the world and you deserve to be highly compensated for them. That is a belief gap. Before you can ever step out and start presenting yourself in the world that way, you have to know it. Right? All of the different things that come with setting up a business. Like, you just don't get your LLC, your corporation, you're incorporated, right? Whatever that is, you don't just file that and you're set, right? Like, nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows why what you have is valuable. There was not, when I was first getting started, social media was not like it is today. Like, we barely had Facebook, so there was not these other things happening. So there was only boots on the ground. You had to go meet people constantly and feel like a fool as you talked about yourself. And you had to be open to making connections that you wouldn't normally think of, let alone when I first started, I looked like I was 12. So that wasn't really working in my favor, right? So people are like, wait, who are you and what do you do? What do you actually know? As much as I could say, try me, they probably weren't going to listen to me. I had to very much believe in myself, right? It was almost like Timothy in the Bible, right? I might look young, but I'm mighty, right? Mighty in the Lord. So it's really, really interesting. There's so many things you have to learn. You don't know how much things cost. Things cost a lot of money. Anything from all of the services that you're subscribed to behind the things, behind the website, behind whatever it is that you offer, right? The production, if you have an office space, right? Like, there's so much inventory. There's so much that costs you things, right? Let alone getting the word out, helping people see who you are. Like, just picture having a bakery, right? And so you have the bakery, you just kind of assume that people know where that is and they know how to find it and that it's going to be a big deal when you just make baked goods. Not so. Like, there's a huge, right? You have to figure out how to pay for that space and all of the product that you produce. You have to figure out how to get word of mouth going on so that you can start driving people to you and casting a net out there, right? There's so much involved in that you just have no idea. We tend to think, right? Oh, if you just build it, they'll come. Yeah, no, that's not what happens. Right? And here's how this translates. Oh, if you write the book, people will read it. Not true. Not true. And you think in your brain that the residual money that you're going to make off of books is going to be amazing. No. If that's your intention for doing it, you're not going to enjoy the outcomes, right? So there's just things that are involved in it. You have to have a purpose. You have to have a why. It really helps. The Bible says count the cost, right? Count the cost so that you're playing the long game here. You're not doing it out of an impure motive. You're not doing it for your ego. You're not doing it for significance. You're not doing it for how you appear to man. You are doing it as obedience to the Lord, and here's what it costs. So you better start preparing because it's going to be heavy. Okay, and there's going to be challenges, and there's going to be risks, and there's going to be so much stretching and so many growing pains, but you've got to be able to embrace that, okay? So, there is no growth without risk. And I love this quote. I believe this is John Maxwell, but I'm not sure. If you have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. So integrity is everything, especially when you are leading or pioneering something. You, to some degree, cannot still be wrestling with the fear of man. Everyone's going to have ideas. Everyone's going to have opinions. And those are all coming from the place of they don't know what it's like to walk in your shoes. They don't know if there's a rock in your shoe. They don't know where it's rubbing your foot the wrong way. They are not in your shoes. And it is so easy to tell people what to do from outside the arena when you're not in the arena taking the hits every day. It is so easy to observe from afar and think you know what's going on, but you only see something in part. You don't have the full context, so you have to be careful, right? So you've got to know that. You've got to know that nobody ever knows the full story. You don't even know the full story half the time, right? But the one that you got to know is God's story. And what is it that he's asking and requiring of you? Because at the end of the day, that is who you report to. You don't report to people, you report to God, and you're doing everything as unto the Lord. So you have to make sure that you're constantly checking in there. So if you've got integrity with the Lord and with yourself because you're keeping promises with yourself, that is all that matters. And if you don't have it, nothing else matters. Because if you don't have integrity, there's no way that you can get anything off the ground. Nobody will trust you. Your motives will be off. You will take advantage of people. You will be a slimy human, right? Like you will be so double-minded and unstable in all of your ways. So if you have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. Okay? So I want you to stop and think about this for a second. Without risk, growth is impossible. Just thinking about that. Where have you decided to stop taking risks? There's likely a direct correlation to no progress now happening in that area. When we start to pull back, when we start to get comfortable instead of stretching and instead of stepping out, growth dies in that area. So just evaluate where you stop taking risks in your life, okay? Now, this is human. It is in our nature to avoid risk. We do have this part of our brain that is designed to survive and keep us safe. So it's risk adverse, right? Like our brain is like, no, it's doing a constant risk analysis all the time. Okay, that's telling us it's not safe. Do not do that. Do not, right? So we've got this part of ourselves. And a lot of times when you're taking a risk and when you're stepping out against faith, you are going against your fleshly nature. Okay, your supernatural nature knows that risks are part of the game. Your supernatural nature is courageous. It's bold, right? It's bold as a lion. It charges forth into things. Your fleshly nature, not so much, okay? So you've got to be willing to risk something. Whether it's risking your reputation, people ain't gonna like you sometimes, and you have to be okay with that, right? It could be risking finances. That could be really scary. You're like, I feel uncomfortable. This amount is a lot. I could think of so many things that I would use that for, but I'm gonna sow that because the Lord told me to. And I know when I get seed in the ground, there's a return coming. And I know, supernaturally speaking, God's math, right, is not the way we do math. It is supernatural. He does math through multiplication, okay? So if I put seed in the ground, he's got something to multiply. So I might be uncomfortable because I'm looking at what is, but if I put it in the ground, it's gonna multiply, okay? Or it could even be your time. You're risking your time. Sometimes we have zero idea how much time things take. Zero clue until we start actually attempting them on our own. Because there's some people in the world, they are anointed, right? And they make things look easy. So you look at them and you're like, oh yeah, I can do that. And then you go try and you're like, I don't know how to, this is so hard. Like I have zero idea how they do that. An example, right? We just had the Olympics. So picture gymnastics, right? They are throwing themselves 12 feet in the air, making that look easy, making it look like the floor is full of springs, which it really is not if you've walked on that before. And you're throwing yourself in the air, flipping multiple times and twisting simultaneously and landing that thing without breaking your feet, right? Landing on your neck, coming out unscathed, right? It looks so simple. You're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go try that. Just take yourself to a trampoline park and watch what happens, right? Like it's not going to go the same. Because that's been trained, that's been practiced, and there's gifting there. But they make it look so easy. You're like, oh, sure, I'm just going to go do that too. No. No, right? Anointing can be really confusing, right? When you see somebody that is gifted, when you see somebody operating, right, in maturity and in anointing, you think they just got there. Right? You don't see what it cost. You don't see the pain and the sacrifice behind the scenes. You don't see how long it took. You don't see what it took to get to that anointing and that level of being trusted with different power and authority, you don't see what that took. You just see where they are now. And that's what we miss. That's what we miss on social media. That's what we miss in these highlight reels. That's what we miss when we take things out of context and we don't mind our own business anymore, right? We get in other people's business and we get stuck. Okay. So you will have to risk something, whether it is time, reputation, finances. Okay. In order to really grow, you have to know that, which is why most people are like, no, I'm good. That was really uncomfortable the way we had to stretch before, so I don't want to do that again. Well, unfortunately, stretching and risk is required to grow, okay? So you're going to need to cultivate a mindset that is willing to embrace risk, right? I think about back in the day, I teach the Daily 5 in the God's Vibes Mastermind. And I really thought about this because a lot of times when we try to get out of our season, we're like, I don't like this season, I want to get out. And we try to just like hustle into another season. We try to run from the season that we're in. We start developing crutches, right? Like we start leaning into things that actually don't serve us anymore. So this is where we might find an addiction. This is where we might find a really bad habit because we're trying to run from something. We're trying to look for pleasure. We're trying to look for something that feels good now. This doesn't feel good, so I'm looking for a feel good now kind of a thing, right? Now, we don't actually think that when we're doing that, there's any harm in that. That's how all addiction, that's how anything that's not really good for us starts. It starts as little decisions away from integrity every day, okay? So thinking about that, I'm like, okay, what if I just replaced any sort of vice with a virtue? Right? Like whatever that is. And it doesn't even have to be bad to other people, but it's just not a good, healthy fit for you, right? So like some people, maybe they're totally fine studying other people's lives on reality TV and knowing more about their lives than their own. Maybe that works for them. For me, that won't ever work for me, right? If I am on purpose, that's not going to work for me. What that does is suck time and energy, right? And focus out of my life. Like I see things being robbed from me through that exchange. Okay. So I'm like, nope, absolutely not. Like hard pass. Like I will not do it. I'm not going to judge people that do that, but it's not going to work for me. It does not fit for me. So for example, instead of reality TV for an hour plus, right, a week, what if I put that hour plus into something that had to do with my purpose? Or what if I put that hour plus into praying? What if I put that hour plus into taking care of my health? What if I put that hour plus into renewing my mind? What if I put that hour plus into nurturing a relationship or a mentoring, cultivating a mentorship, right? What if I put that hour plus into building what God told me to build? See what I'm saying? Okay, so the idea was, all right, I'm either going to let things take me further away from what God had in mind, or they're going to start keeping me in line with what God had in line. And either option will be entirely up to me because I have free will to choose. So what if, just hypothetically, let's try it on. What if I just picked 5 things that if I did them all of the time, like every day, if I did these 5 things, I would like train an Olympian, right? Like I would train, righteousness into my life. I would train a mindset that is willing to embrace risk into my life. Like I would train this human that can go to these places that God is calling her to. What 5 things would those be that just help me know, like, you're healthy, right? Like you are able to function. Like it's actually just baseline. So if I can't even do these baseline 5 things, then I can't take on more. I actually have to do less, right? So I've been practicing these 5 things for years now, something to the tune of 8 years or so. Right? And they're a lifestyle. So I don't really think about it. I just do them every day, right? It doesn't matter if I'm traveling, doesn't matter where I am. I can flex on the time and such, right? But I still do them every day. Okay. And that is super powerful. So think about that. You need a mindset that's willing to embrace risk. You probably need character that is solid, right? And that can be maintained in adversity. Right? You probably need character that's been tested. You probably need ways to rest and refresh, right? Because burnout is not a strategy. Stress is not a strategy. So you probably need ways to build resilience behind the scenes because nobody else is going to do that for you. In fact, as you are leading, as you are pioneering, as you are parenting, you're going to see, if you are not careful, the demand on your life is greater than the inputs in your life. So you have got to take control of the inputs. Otherwise, that's going to get out of balance so fast. And then you're going to become a person that you don't recognize. Okay? So it's very important. A mindset that is striving to take the next step. A mindset that is pursuing, like there is a pursuit happening, the kingdom of God, right? This almost like hunger to keep going, to progress, to move forward, right? You need a mindset that understands that otherwise you will not be able to move forward. Usually it's not the circumstances or even other people that are in our way. We are in our way. How we are thinking, the attitudes of our heart, what we are meditating on day and night, how we choose to talk about things and murmur and complain about things and start gossip or whatever it is, we are in our own way. So the more you're evaluating that and investigating that and refining that and repenting for that and adjusting, you're going to have your hands full. You will be a busy human, right? So this is going to be true. This mindset is true for both your career, your personal life, your relationships, everything. The people who find success and continue to advance are those who keep pushing for better. Not to say that they are not content with where they are. They've got that Apostle Paul strategy, right? Like, I'm content, but I'm also pursuing more, okay? So whether they tackle a project that seems impossible, they push to break a record, right? They start a new initiative, whatever this happens to be, people with a mindset that embraces risk understand that you cannot allow fear of failure to hold you back. No, you cannot allow it. I think about with fear, what would it be like for you if you had a strict no tolerance policy for it? So what this means is it might come up, but you have a policy in place. Like when it comes up, you know what to do with it. You don't invite it in. You don't start talking to it. You don't nurture it. You don't let it take up more space in your mind. You don't start phoning a friend and talking about everything you're afraid of. No, you identify what it is and you drive it out because you've got a no tolerance policy for it. If you have a tolerance policy for it, you can let it take up all the space you want. And it will take up every corner, every inch you give it. Okay? And I know it seems scary to think about risk. I get it. I am not immune. I am not like a special human that doesn't experience whatever other human experiences. I experience all of it. So I know it is scary, and I want to give you some principles that you can use to help yourself become more adaptable, okay? So keep in mind, when I'm talking about risk, I'm not saying that you can simply throw caution to the wind and take a crazy, irresponsible leap. That's not even how God moves, okay? It can feel uncomfortable and it can feel crazy in the sense that it's not logical, but the way God leads, it's not irresponsible, okay? He's actually been cultivating something. He's been developing something, so you know to take that leap with him. So what I'm talking about is intentional, focused risk that will help you achieve the goals that God set before you, all right? And that's a great question. What goals has God set before you versus what goals are you just running after? If God's not on it, I don't want it. So make sure you're checking it with him first. So number one, failure is something to be learned from, not feared. Okay, there's a beautiful image that I posted, I believe in our Courage Co inspo. I posted it in there and it shows the road to success, like what we think it looks like and what it actually looks like. Okay. And so a lot of people think that it looks like you just take one step and you're like, ta-da, I'm successful. I have arrived. Okay. You just take one step up and people think, oh, that's somebody opening this door for you, or that's somebody giving you this position, or that's somebody doing something for you, which is why we start getting weird. That ain't it. It actually looks like steps of failure, right? And then you finally hit a point where you're like, then it's failure, right? So you just keep stepping on all of the failures. And failures, you can define that however you want, but often that is, it didn't go the way you had in mind. It didn't turn out the way you expected. It didn't look like you thought it was going to look like. It didn't feel as good as you thought, right? An example of this, when I set up my first internship in New York, I was like, I've arrived. right? Oh, ye of just being naive, right? I thought I arrived. I really did. I'm like, I am doing big things, right? I'm figuring some stuff out. This is going to be great. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Right? You just are going to learn through this internship how much you don't know. Okay? It's going to get real fast, right? Or a lot of people love the idea of a wedding, let's say. They're like, yay, wedding. But then they don't actually consider, this isn't everybody, but many people don't actually consider what happens after that, which is actually, the rest of your life. If you're taking the vows seriously, right? There's a lot that goes into a marriage. Have you studied marriage? Have you prepared for marriage? That's not just a wedding. A wedding can happen so fast. They can do it so fast now. It can be like 15 minutes and poof, right? That's it. And then the rest of the time you're in a marriage, right? So really think about that. Failure is something to be learned from, not feared. So when it comes down to it, so many of us allow our fear of failure to dictate what we do. Well, I failed here, so that just proves that I'm not qualified for this. No, that was just your initiation into going for it, right? The fear of what will happen if we fail becomes so big in our minds that we aren't able to see that this fear is actually a failure in and of itself. Okay? You've got to take chances, make mistakes, and learn from them in order to really grow. And that is what it takes to step out into anything that you've never done before. If you haven't seen somebody do it, even if you have seen them do it, it's still new to you. It's still new to you. And so when you step out, you feel like that comes with it. You're like, what if I fail? Yep, that's a great thought. But what about the other side? What if you soar? What if it goes really well? You will never know because your fear of failure will eat you alive before you even try. Right? Perfectionism usually goes closely with this. What if it's not perfect? Okay, there will probably be a typo. There will probably be ways that you could refine it. Okay, there could probably be so many things that you identify in hindsight and as you get feedback that could have been better. But here's what perfectionism does. It gives you the worst standard that you could ever live under because it's a lie, and it prevents you from actually birthing things and creating things that need to exist in the world. Problem, right? Like, it's got to be in the world for somebody to find a typo or an issue with it. And if it's not in the world, it can't bless anybody. So there's that. Number 2, life is always moving. So for many of us, our driving force is to avoid change. I hate change. I don't want it. It doesn't feel good. It's awkward. Ugh. Like, we just want to avoid it. I think something that was helpful, I've moved across the country and in that way started over so many times by myself, right? Like, there was not a promise of like family and friends and like a soft landing. It was like, you better figure it out. Rent's due, right? Like, it's, you have to learn to adapt and to survive before you can even get to a place where you thrive. And I think enough times of starting over like that, I started to be like, ooh, well, every time you do it, that feeling doesn't go away. There's still either I can embrace this as something that terrifies me or find some adventure in it, but it's going to feel the same way. Okay, life is always moving, it's always changing, and it's up to you to take a risk and step forward to determine the direction you want to go. We don't often get our next step until we're in motion, and if you don't get in motion, you're always going to have a lack of clarity. You're going to be stuck. You're not in motion. You can't see what's out ahead of you. You can't see what's next. Number 3, practice taking small risks. That's how you can build to bigger ones. Practice taking little small ones that seem like a risk to you. And I understand that might seem silly and inconsequential, but still just try it. Try it on. I believe that by practicing embracing even the small risks, you're going to find a shift in your focus, right? Because now your brain can't go on autopilot. You can't just go in your usual programming. You start stretching and you're going to no longer be able to focus on bad outcomes because you actually don't know what's going to happen just yet. And you're going to find yourself empowered by small wins along the way. And this gives you the courage that you're going to need. You start filling your courage bank to embrace bigger risk when the time comes, and it will. It is just a matter of time. Like, your next big opportunity where you're going to have to take a risk is coming. And if you're not already taking little small risks, you're not going to have the courage you need for that. Okay. And then lastly, number 4, surround yourself, I call them faith walkers, right? Surround yourself with courageous humans. They often find Courage Co. Surround yourself with people who measure the gain, not the gap, right? It is so easy to surround yourself with people that can tell you all of their fears, that can project all of their fear onto you and all of their failures onto you, that can just literally shut you up before you even take a step. It is so easy to come by those people. What is rare, what is uber rare, are the people that actually celebrate the gain, the people that are courageous for a living. They are literally courage brokers. The people that will champion you, that will encourage you, that will remind you that, yep, it feels crazy, that's normal, but you can do it. They will build you up, right? They will stir up your faith and fan the flame within. That is rare. That is so rare. Oh my goodness. So it's important to have people who can give you perspective along the way. And I'm sure you've heard many times in your life that the people you spend time with matter, right? They're either people who are going to lift you up or bring you down. Okay. So when we're talking about learning to embrace risk, you want to have people who help you see how far you've come so you can celebrate your journey. And maybe you don't hit the goal that you set, but you learn along the way it is worth the risk. And these people can help you see what's possible now because you took the risk that you otherwise wouldn't have. The life that now calls to you is one of fulfillment, joy, and conscious co-creating with God. It's a life free from the shackles of fear and self-doubt. And this new way of being beckons us, like it summons us towards harmony, cooperation, and reverence for all of life. We can actually embrace that life is a gift, that it's not promised. Creating authentic power is a journey of self-discovery and transformation. It is a requirement, courage, intention, and unwavering commitment. You can't be like halvesies. You can't like sort of be in. You got to be all in, both feet. Both feet. It's an ongoing process of shedding limiting beliefs and embracing the fullness of who we are. And by cultivating compassion, gratitude, and love, we align ourselves with the truth and support our growth and evolution. And these are the qualities that lead us to a life of true fulfillment and purpose. So I want to challenge you. What risk will you take this month? Do you need some spiritual running buddies, courage brokers, faith walkers alongside you? Come join us in Courage Co., www.courageco.org. I challenge you, commit to raising your risk tolerance. You never know what you're going to miss out on if you don't. And if you need help, Courage Co monthly coaching is a great place to get yourself accountable, right? It is this space that is full of non-negotiable you time. What if you gave yourself 60 minutes a week where you just focused on you and your growth and the risk that you're taking? Okay, and getting a plan behind that and adding accountability and somebody that can champion you, support you, challenge you, and help you get the outcomes that you're going for. This will change your life. I know that it's often the scariest thing that you could ever do. The first investment in coaching that I ever took was terrifying. But frankly, I was more afraid of what was going to happen if I didn't do that. And we all get to answer that question. What's most important, right? If we don't start taking action, nobody else can take that action for us. So we either get to stay where we are or worse, go in reverse, or we can stretch and invest in our future. That is the most beautiful gift you can give yourself and those connected to you, who you become. All right, so I encourage you, come join us this week for the free masterclass, Turn Your Insights into Action, Wednesday, September 4th, 7 p.m. Central Time. Also, get on the wait list for Courage Co. monthly coaching. Just entertain that for a second. How might you dedicating 60 minutes to work on you change your life? 60 minutes every single week. Think about that. All right, everybody. I hope this message blessed you. And until next time, stay blessed. Listen, if you are not plugged into Courage Co yet, what are you doing? Courage Co is a faith-based community off social media that you can access from your phone or your desktop, literally from anywhere. It is a safe place and a sacred space for you to invest in and live your most courageous and impactful story. You can join us for free for prayer calls and challenges, for a monthly subscription where we have monthly masterclasses, or the God's Vibes Mastermind, where you will get live master life coaching at a price that you won't get anywhere else, 12 weeks of content that we will go through together, or you can navigate at your own pace. You'll have lifetime access to that. A community of women doing this alongside of you, a workbook, and so many other materials to help you on your journey. And I just want you to imagine for a second, having the courage, clarity, and focus to achieve anything you desire. Walking into any situation fully confident, knowing you have everything you need to succeed. Embracing challenges and overcoming obstacles with grace and ease. Feeling only love and compassion for others, no matter how they may have hurt you in the past. Standing up for what you believe in and taking unstoppable action to create the kind of world you want to live in. You're in the right place to take your next step on your journey. When you plug into the God's Vibes Mastermind, I'll teach you how to identify and eliminate the self-limiting beliefs and habits that are stopping you from getting the results you want. I'll teach you how to heal old wounds that have negatively impacted your self-image and self-esteem for far too long. I'll show you how to dismantle the story of who you are and what you can or cannot do in the world. I'll help you expand your consciousness from fear-based limitation to love and compassion and service to the world. I'll help you vanquish the inner enemies that are stopping you from being all that you can be. Release your victimhood and reclaim your power. Develop a aligned mindset and habits to boost your productivity and results. Gain deeper awareness of your own inner light and divinity, and achieve the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual self-mastery needed to achieve any goal. You will learn how to think the way God formed, shaped, and anointed you to think, and succeed the way He always intended, and show up in any situation as the most powerful person in the room, no matter what challenges might appear on your path. If this sounds like something that you want to be a part of, I want to invite you to join the God's Vibes Mastermind. You can get plugged into it over at Courage Co. You can access Courage Co at any level at www.courageco.org. Together, we will awaken your inner warrior spirit and unleash your capacity to achieve any goal you can imagine. You will become an example of what's possible with God.